Zahra Ciardi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here.
Zara, you are a psychologist with over a decade of experience in healing. What is the biggest misconception in the modern world when it comes to trauma?
That's a really good question to start with. I feel like people think trauma is overt, it's big, it's capital letter T, but that's only what we understand as an incident like a car accident or maybe an assault or something awful of that nature. So a lot of people think that that's what trauma is. So they might dismiss their own traumatic experiences because they don't understand the fullness of what it can look like. So I like to think about trauma as capital letter T and small letter t. Small letter t traumas are things like emotional neglect. For example, let's say you grow up in a family that is misattuned to your needs. They're not providing you with safety. They're not providing you with the love, the connection, the play, the spontaneity. And so you're missing out on that. And as a child, that may seem insignificant to you and me, but as a child, that's a lot. That's a lot to deal with. It's a lot to cope with. And you're missing out on what you need for full development. So people misunderstand trauma because they think it's just capital letter T and not all the other stuff.
What is the cost of missing out on that and having unmet needs as a child? How does that diffuse into your adult life?
I think when you start to get to know what are the missing, the unmet needs, the ways that I was not taken care of, loved, connected, all of the ways that I missed out on these things that are so important for me. When you start to understand that, you start to see where the wounds are. And when you know where the wounds are, then you can pay attention to it as an adult and begin to put love into that or put attention into it in terms of healing, seeking support, or understanding. Just having that level of awareness gives you a bigger handle on your life. A lot of the time we have all of these invisible wounds that we carry with us. And what we don't realize is because they're invisible and we're not looking at them and we're not aware of them because we're not exploring what's going on with ourselves, we've developed ways of coping with them that we also don't understand. So if I feel a sense of, let's say, abandonment. I was abandoned as a child and I feel a sense of abandonment in relationships. What I might do is I might become really needy and really clingy. And so instead of being able to have a secure attachment, I learned that in order to keep love and have love, I must cling and I must be very, very needy. And so the wound is invisible. The coping mechanism forms to support you because you didn't develop healthy coping or you didn't learn new ways of relating to yourself and to others. And then it creates all of this stuff that's going on in your life and you wonder what's going on. And, you know, if it repeats long enough, you get used to it and you call it a life. And that's really sad. I think that's a tragedy of it because a lot of people come to us thinking that that's what life looks like. I know I felt that way for many years. I didn't even know that I was experiencing complex PTSD and that the ways that it was showing up and manifesting in my life were not really normal until I was sitting down in my psychology university doing a class and they played this documentary and I remember just watching it and going, that's my life. This is me. But we're learning about it as a you know, quote unquote disorder. But I didn't feel that it was, you know, I felt seen in that moment, that the way I was feeling, there was a label for it and I could do something about it. So it gave me a roadmap to work with it. So I guess where I'm going with that is when you know and when you can give it enough time and attention to be able to explore yourself and discover yourself more deeply, then you can develop patterns and healthy habits and ways of relating to yourself, others, and the world that's actually conducive to the kind of life that you want.
How does one shine a light on these subconscious blockers? It's nearly like you're not even holding the steering wheel.
Yeah.
Driving
You're in the
through-
passenger.
you're in the
Sometimes
passenger
you're in the
seat.
boot. Yeah.
In the boot.
Yeah.
In the boot. Obviously, there's various different points on the spectrum of trauma, and
Yeah.
no one person is going to be the same. But how would you start the process of shining a light on these subconscious blockers?
Yeah. I mean, firstly, you don't have to do it alone and you shouldn't have to do it alone. We're too close to our stuff. And I have a psychologist and I've been in therapy for over 12 years, on and off, given the where I'm at and what I'm doing. So if your psychologist has a psychologist, you can also use a psychologist. It's okay. I think when we're too close to our stuff, we can't see it clearly. But having somebody that can pull that away and support you in observing it, understanding it, making sense of it. And then you have this buy-in, this commitment to wanting to change this because you start to see clearly how it's got its tentacles on you, right? And it's manipulating how you feel, how you think, how you behave. And of course, then once you see it, you can't unsee it. And so the desire to want to change grows. And the therapeutic process is now really gaining some momentum. And that's when we start to make progress, because when it's invisible, you don't necessarily know or care. When you start to see it and you become aware of it, the drive to want to change becomes really strong. But don't do it alone. Find the right support.
I had a similar experience in my trajectory
Yeah.
to you.
I want to know about.
So I quit my corporate job
Yeah.
in a medical device factory
Okay.
back in September 2023.
Mm.
And I jumped into entrepreneurship, that whole world, head first.
Literally a month apart. I love that.
Yeah. I was in the back, like, I would have been doing stuff in the background in the
I was gonna say, were you
shadows.
side hustling?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
side hustling
Yeah,
for
same.
like 6 months, but I told hardly anyone. I was too afraid. That fear of judgment, that fear of failure was definitely there. So I was working in the shadows, but I quit the job and I dived into that world. And for 2 years straight, I never took a day off. I was
Yeah.
obsessed. My mind was racing. I had this big, massive North Star, this dream life, this future that I was chasing, a life of freedom.
Yeah.
And it consumed every single fiber of me. And it wasn't until May 2025, I went on a holiday with my mum and dad and my brother to Santorini in Greece. And I tried to switch off for a week. I thought that would fix me, give me a reset to then go again. And I just couldn't stop. And I ended up taking out my Kindle one day and I stumbled across Mel Robbins' book, The Let Them Theory. And one of the chapters was on chronic stress. And I was like, similar to you, I was just reading it and I was like, oh my God, this has been my life. Not only for the last 2 years, but for the last maybe decade, 2 decades.
Wow. It highlights how important it is that we share our stories, right? Mel Robbins sharing that book and getting so vulnerable. People, using social media, blogs, YouTube to be able to share their stories and to normalize it. I think as high achievers and high performers, where it's so difficult for us to ask for help or to know when it's time to ask for help, because we're independent and we get shit done. Sorry, I don't know if you can swear on this podcast.
Yeah, go for it.
We get shit done. In fact, what we're known for and what people celebrate about us and sometimes even envy about us is our ability to get things done. And this almost on switch of just doing. But we don't realize the cost of it. Most of us, we don't realize it until we learn it through personal experience. I have a hypothesis that even if you had read Mel Robbins' book long before the burnout, it would have been like, no, that won't happen to me.
Yeah. 100%.
And we're humans, we're like that. We're like, no, that won't happen to me. And for a lot of high performers, we wait until rock bottom. Until there is literally no more coping, no more, not a single other day that you can keep going, and then you ask for help. And that can happen that way as well. This can be a huge barrier to treatment. But I think it's really amazing that you read that and you sought support. Do you mind if I ask what you did after?
Yeah, I had built, this is going to sound weird. I had built a second brain with AI, and I had tried therapy in the past, but once a week for an hour, it didn't do shit. Like it just wasn't, it was surface level, and it never got to that root cause. And I felt like every week we were going back and we were like, half an hour would be spent just catching up, and next thing we only have half an hour left. Whereas one of my old mentors, actually from Australia too, he was teaching in his program about how to use AI as a second brain, how to really understand your personality type
Yeah.
on a deeper level. And this is something I had never explored before. And I just became so interested with this entire world. So I was bouncing my brain dumps back and forth for like 6 months. And every time I had a thought, I was able to ask AI, where does this come from?
Mm.
And I was able to actually map like all the different childhood memories, experiences
Wow. Yeah.
that had led to my behaviors all the way through my adult life. So AI for
That's pretty
me
incredible.
in that way was an absolute game changer.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, you basically described the process of mapping.
Yeah.
And what we do is, in therapy, there's a process that we use. You might come into a therapeutic space and say, I'm frustrated and there's a thing going on in my life. And you might be having a reaction to a stimuli within your current moment. But then what we do is we float back, because a lot of the time our reactions may not be appropriately connected to the current stimulus. So they might be a lot more exaggerated than they are.
Yeah.
And that usually is a clue that there's more to it. So we do a float back exercise, which is exactly what you're talking about. And we map out memories linked to times where I felt the same way, whether it's the same emotion or the same trigger of a belief, like I'm not good enough, I'm not safe, I'm not in control. There's a whole bunch of other beliefs that we can list out. But you've gone ahead and done that with AI. And this is what I love about AI, because I think it is absolutely important within a therapeutic setting. There's a lot of advantages to it, like what you've described. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can talk about, but I don't know if this is the right conversation for it. But well done. That's pretty amazing progress.
You mentioned mapping there.
Yeah.
What happens after you map out that
Yeah.
Venn diagram, whatever you want to call it?
I know most people go, oh my gosh, like really, like, like you said before, most people think trauma is, overt and big, as opposed to these experiences that we've had in childhood, where our needs were not met. And so when we acknowledge it, there is a level of sadness and vulnerability in that moment that I think is really important to hold and nurture. And then we work with the map. We look at every single memory or experience, and we either use tools like schema therapy or EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and we process those memories. What both of these treatments do is they take a memory that's really strongly charged, and it creates, maybe whenever you think of it, you might have an emotional experience, maybe some body sensations, maybe some thoughts, or it maybe makes you act in a certain way. We take that memory, because memories activate in all sorts of ways, it's not just a video in our mind or an image in our mind. Memories are held in the body and in all those processes that I mentioned. So EMDR, for example, will take that memory and process it in a way that kind of looks a little bit woo-woo. So you'd be looking at a moving object and your eyes dart back and forth. You might also bilaterally tap. And yeah, there's a lot of people think therapy is just talking, but there's so much more in psychology, the tools that we use, that's completely scientific and based on research, that sometimes on the surface looks a little bit outrageous and really woo-woo. EMDR is one of them. And once we process the memory, we start to see, after a few rounds of tapping and darting your eyes, holding the memory, it creates a desensitization. So the emotions reduce. The memory feels really far away. It's almost like behind a foggy glass. And you also start to have positive beliefs spontaneously emerge. So if you had believed that, you're shameful with that memory, or that you're out of control, you might end up with, I feel in control of what I can control. Or you might end up with, I'm okay as I am, and that's enough. Yeah. And I don't plant these thoughts in people's minds. They come up with it spontaneously, because you have some adaptive, healthy networks in your mind already. No matter how much trauma you've been through, there's been some adaptive experiences, maybe a really good friend, or a time at a workplace that was healthy. And we lean on those adaptive networks in therapy to bring about a processing effect. These things are quite complicated. And, I'm trying to simplify something that is quite a difficult, emotional, and very vulnerable thing to go through, an incredibly brave thing to do. But, it's one of those things that can work quickly. So EMDR, you can do intensively instead of one session a week. I'll see you next week. You can, in the Netherlands, they do them, I think, about 3 to 6 hours of therapy per day
Yeah,
for 5
I see that.
days.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So not all therapy has to have gaps between and be slow paced. Some therapy can, which it really appeals to high performers because we like to get things done
Just get it
quickly.
done.
Get it done, tick.
Get it over it.
Yeah.
Another memory that
Mm.
just triggered there as you were speaking. When I was in secondary school, I had this big metal retainer,
Mm.
and it used to give me a lisp. And every week in woodwork class, the teacher would get different pupils to read in front of the class. And I remember going to him, I specifically said, do not fucking ask me to read. But he did it anyway. And the sensations that I felt that day, the tightness in my chest, so intense. I remember talking really low, so other pupils I couldn't pick up on the lisp.
Yeah.
But ever since that day, the whole way through my teenage years, even like most of my 20s, public speaking for me was a nightmare.
Yeah.
Every time a different teacher in class would ask to read, I'd feel it. Even like on sports teams. One year I was the captain, and what's the captain have to do? Has to speak before the games. And the same
Same feeling.
same fist in my chest. And only since last year, start of 2025, I knew the power of affirmations. I knew the power of journaling, of rewiring the mind. I'd studied modules in college on neuroscience, but I never was able to get into the habituation to actually install this daily habit. But I made a pact. I made a pact with myself. 1st of January 2025, every day I'm going to do my journaling. I'm going to rewire my mind. 2 months later, I was in the Croke Park Stadium in Dublin, and I was at a networking event for business owners, and the microphone was going around. And what did I do? I went up and grabbed it.
Well done. Wow.
And I spoke in front of 200 people.
That's incredible. As someone with a fear of public speaking, and the first 5 minutes of this podcast, I was like fumbling my way through it until I get ears. I get it, and I'm really, really impressed right now. 200 people.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
I got then chatting to a lady who put me in touch with someone 6 weeks later, and next thing I was speaking on the stage and selling from the stage.
Oh wow!
6 weeks later, and then I'd done the podcast the year before, but only online.
Yep.
So I was like, fuck this, I'm getting the podcast going again. So then I started doing that last summer.
That's pretty impressive
and
stuff.
now I love it.
Oh gosh, that's amazing.
I love it.
And it goes to show what neuroplasticity can do, that ability to rewire your brain through intentional repetition. And neuroplasticity tends to work better when you really put feeling behind it. So you're not just writing them down, you're really feeling it. You're creating this experience out of it. And neuroplasticity tends to work better when you do it intensively as well. So this is why we work quite intensively. If you're kind of doing it and then you'll do it next week and then you'll do it next week and the week after, you're not necessarily, the brain is not getting enough to be able to rewire itself. So I think doing it daily, putting some feeling behind it, and then remaining consistent, that's incredible. That's exactly what you did. I can't believe you're not going to therapy and you're absolutely smashing it. You're like, I'm a high performer. That's what we do.
That's gas. Tell me more about your program, the intensive 3-week, 21-day.
Yeah. I mean,
what does that look like?
Our minimum time is about 14 days, and we can do 28 days or more. But I feel like the ideal number is like somewhere around the 21.
21.
I
Sweet spot.
yeah, the sweet spot. I do like the 28s because it just gives you a bit more space.
Yeah.
But something about 21 days isn't there's an enoughness to it because people want to go back to work and want to re-enter life. So we've landed on 21 as actually quite effective. The Ascendant Program, the reason why I developed the Ascendant Program, it's almost like what I needed for recovery. And then through years of experience, what I've seen my clients need over and over and over again. So it wasn't just me needing it. It's the people that I've worked with who are hungry for more. And this fragmented care that we have currently in the most developed countries, including Australia, probably, in Ireland and in the US and in the UK, it just feels like if you're struggling with mental health, you'll go to a doctor, maybe you'll get referred to a psychologist, maybe not, you'll just get pills, or maybe you'll get told to go for walks more and get some sun. But, and especially high performers, they just say, take a little break because they look so outwardly okay,
Yeah.
and they have this, the awards, the accolades, the money, whatever it might be. So people just think your problems are privileged, right? Which is awful, but it's true. And what happens is we get fragmented care. You might see a psychologist and you'll see them every week, maybe every 2 weeks, but you'll never see a nutritionist that can tell you about how your gut is impacting your mental health and how what you consume is literally impacting your mood, your energy levels, your stamina, all of these things that contribute to mental health. You don't get a supplementation plan that can actually boost how you feel every day and give you that foundation, that base that you need to keep working on your mental health. You don't get the personal training and the physical therapy. You might be lucky that you've got the medical and the psychological model, and that's it. So what I've tried to do is bring it all together under the one roof and make sure that every single person is collaborating and talking to each other. And our main focus is how can we create a really good system that supports this person effectively and gets them results as efficiently as possible. Instead of making them wait 6 to 12 months, what parts of their recovery can be sped up in this 21 days. I'm not saying that at 21 days you're healed and done and, it's a one and done thing and you're good for the rest of your life, because it's not humanly possible. We are forever growing and changing and developing. So the work is lifelong, but we take what is holding you back. We take the immediate things that are impacting you. And instead of getting treatment for 6 months, how about we try to put that into 21 days? And in 21 days, your brain is rewiring itself. This is why I like 28, because we've got a bit more time to work with your brain, but we can still hold you through 21. We've still got aftercare to hold you through it and make sure you're maintaining and remaining consistent. I just think people should be treated as the complex humans that they are, not just a fragment, just psychology, just your body, just your nutrition. If you look at all of that together, then you might be able to give someone a chance at a different life, something that they're really craving and yearning for.
A holistic approach. We're not just trying to fix the problem from one angle or two angles. We're trying to make lasting change.
Correct.
What does that lasting change look like? Obviously, everyone's different, but what kind of changes would you expect to show up after 21 days?
Let me use specific examples without names and without, breaking confidentiality. We had a client recently come in who has been out of work for a long time, completely burnt out, years of trauma that she's bottled and pushed down and maybe even used some of that as a way to fuel her ambition. Because when you've got unmet needs, sometimes what you try to do is you overcompensate by getting awards and accolades and achieving and getting bigger in that way. And maybe then I'll be enough, and maybe then I'm lovable, and maybe then. And so what happens is that runs its course. There's a ceiling to that. So when I met this particular woman, she had come to us after decades of holding various experiences. And it's so interesting. The research says that if you've had traumatic experiences, especially sexual assaults and some of the most heinous types of trauma, you're more likely to get assaulted again. The very people that need protection and care and support are the ones that end up getting into more traumatic experiences. And that's because the initial trauma weakens our coping mechanisms and our resources, and it depletes us, and it makes us vulnerable to harm and to being taken advantage of, or to not being able to speak up for ourselves, and people-pleasing tendencies. And then that turns into, I'm now in a relationship with a really toxic person. I'm now putting up with a boss who's literally abusing me, but, he's my boss, right? So collecting decades of trauma, and then finally it all came to a head. She was in a freeze state. She'd completely shut down, dissociated. Suicidal thoughts had started to come through. When she arrived, she had a little bit of hope. And I think sometimes that's all we need, just a little bit of hope that change is possible. And then we worked on stabilizing first. So let's understand what's going on for you. Let's assess it. Let's stabilize your nervous system, whether that's through neurofeedback to really regulate your brain activity and give you some calm throughout your nervous system. Whether it's through somatic work, where we plug your head into your body so that you can begin using your body as a resource, because it's a really powerful and resourceful tool. But when we're always busy, when we're always working, it's just a head experience of life. We're just thinking all the time. It's always busy. Okay, spirituality is important to you. Let's look at that. Let's look at energetics. Is energy important to you? Let's do a bit of that work. Then, of course, the nutrition, the naturopathy, and the movement is creating the foundation of that pyramid. It's something that you can build on. And across time, the repetition of these resources, creating routines for sleep, supplementation, meals that are cooked for you by a private chef, therapy sessions, up to 12 hours of therapy per week, split between neurofeedback, EMDR, and other modalities, somatic work. You're getting all of this goodness, and it's challenging. Week 1, everybody wants to quit. It's a lot.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a lot of people think recovery is easy. It's coming to us is one of the hardest things to do, and then we hold you through the rest. But gosh, it's difficult because you have to, I guess, face some of the darkest
You have to
parts of you.
open Pandora's box.
You have to open Pandora's box, and this is what people are very scared of doing, because what if I can't close it back up? I've been pushing it down all my life, and now you're telling me to open it up and face it. So week 1, there's a little bit of push and pull, trying to support them to let go of old patterns, that it's safe for them to open it up now. And in fact, you've got to go through it in order to get to the other side. There's no more trying to go around it and over it and under it.
The only way is through.
By end of week 2, we're seeing a lifting. And a relief and an elevated hope, a strong understanding and education of their body, kind of like what you did with AI, and you're going, why do I feel this way? What's going on there? Not a lot of people will be able to have your capacity for using AI in the way that you did, and it's not something that I recommend to do on your own, but you did an amazing job. I do recommend doing it with someone. We kind of go through that process, doing it, being held, and showing yourself the compassion that maybe you've not received through your life. And then comes the trauma processing. And through the trauma processing, you're strengthening your adaptive neural network in your brain. You're spontaneously coming up with better and more positive beliefs about yourself and the world. You're now feeling safer. You're feeling lovable. You're feeling enough just because you exist, not for any other reason, not for achievement, not for accolades, not for who likes you and who doesn't. And by the time you get to towards the end of the week, the final week, you're now doing purpose. You're looking at the future. What do I want to achieve? Who do I want to continue to be? What are my goals? What are my aspirations? I'm an ambitious person. What do I want to use this ambition for? I'm no longer trying to prove myself. So it's a beautiful journey, and everyone's unique and different. But generally, this is kind of what we're seeing.
It actually makes sense now. The fact that you go to this deep level in understanding and dealing and healing with the trauma, that you only work with one client at a time.
100%. No groups, no distractions. I believe in group therapy and the magic of what groups can do for one another, but I do believe there's a place and time for that. I've ran groups before and I've facilitated them, and I see that it can be incredibly healing, but it can also mean that we don't get to the depths of you. So it remains superficial, and so the groups become about, support and companionship and camaraderie, a sense of community, but it won't process your trauma for you. It won't allow you to go to the depths of you that you need to go to in order to come out the person that you want to become. It also creates a distraction. Sometimes what we don't realize is when we get into therapy, the people pleaser is people pleasing now because they've got an audience and they survived through people pleasing. The person who's got some grandiosity and maybe a little bit of narcissism constantly is hogging the speaking time. The person who is usually avoidant and withdraws is like going, okay, great, I don't have to talk. I can hide in this group of 10 people and I don't have to look at my stuff. And then the self-sacrificer and the helper, because that's who they are, they rescue everyone in their lives. They start rescuing people in the group. So groups are great, but they also sometimes unintentionally play out our patterns within them, which can be helpful because a good facilitator will pick it and support you through it. But, why the distraction when you want to go to a deeper level? You don't want the superficial. You want to go in and weed your garden. You want to be able to get to the root cause of what's going on for you. Groups can be introduced afterwards. After you've done your 21 days, hell yeah. Find some support groups. Go to networking. Meet your tribe. But giving yourself that 21 days to be selfishly with yourself is the least selfish thing you can do.
What would you say to Zara back at the start of her journey that didn't fully understand the inner texture of her mind the way she does today?
I really love that question. I have a lot of compassion for her. I was in so much pain and suffering, yet I just thought that was normal, that was okay, that was just what life felt like. And I had just assumed that that's the way the rest of my life was going to be, which I think is a really painful thing to sit with because life becomes just about surviving. And it's really nice that life can be more than that, that I can live life from a grounded place, that I can live by my values and adhere to them. I can say this is the person that I am and actually act in line with it. I feel very proud of that. Whereas in the past, I would say one thing and do another, and then the shame and the guilt of that would just absolutely eat me away. I don't want to use alcohol and drugs, and then there I am doing it again. It erodes your sense of self and your identity. It makes you lose trust with who you are. And if you don't trust yourself, how can you trust anyone else? I guess I would go to that part of me and really, as cliche as this sounds, just tell her that I really love her and that she's enough just as she is. And that one day she's going to discover that and feel it, not only intellectually, like that's how I should feel, but actually embody it and to know it and to feel it deeply, and that one day she won't have to chase success to prove that she's enough, that success and contribution and it's just making impact, it's just helping people, it's just in line with your values. That's all it is. You're not trying to prove anything, and that's possible for her. And stay tuned. Give her a little bit of hope. I think that's what she needed.
Love that so much. And the vision, Zara, for the future, the North Star, the mission that you are on, what does that look like?
It excites me.
Where do we start?
I get goosebumps. I'm super ambitious and I get what it's like to be a high performer. There's such a drive to, ever since I was very little, I'm like, I'm destined to do something with my life. I'm meant for something greater. And it's not grandiose or egotistical to say that, but it's just something that a lot of us high performers feel, that we're mentally behind something that even if it just impacts one life, it's something. It doesn't have to be huge or monumental. It's that you've contributed in some way. The vision for me for Ascendant is to be able to normalize and make mental health accessible as much as possible. It's to rewrite the script on what mental health treatment should look like, because the traditional model isn't working. And we keep sending people down that path when we know it's not as effective as it could be. And I'd love to be able to showcase what effective mental health care can look like. I'd love to be able to conduct case studies and research and be able to put that out there to show whether it's other centers or mental health services that this works, this model works. I really want to be able to contribute in bigger ways. We work one-on-one with clients, and I think that's incredibly impactful, because when they go back into their communities, they are impacting their communities. The more you heal, the more your community heals as a result of it. You benefit your family, your work, all of it.
Yeah.
And then the ripple effect is huge. But I do want to reach a greater level of an audience. So I'm trying to develop new ways of being able to contribute. So I hope that we can offer more services, whether it's online, whether it's more affordable, because I understand that mental health is very hard to access because of financial strain and difficulty. So creating services that are impactful but are more affordable as well. There's so much floating around in my head, but I guess it really centers around contribution. How can I contribute more?
Super inspiring.
Mm.
Where can people check you out online? Where's the best place to go?
Yes, you can find me on my website, so ascendantbali.com. We're currently refreshing my personal website, zahraciardi.com. And that, once the new one is launched, you'll be able to see exactly how you can work with me. So some of the services that I was talking about, we'll be launching those sometime this year, and I'm so excited about it. You can also find me on socials. I'm on Instagram at Zara_Ciardi, and also YouTube, I believe the same handle.
Exciting times for sure.
Mm.
Thanks so much for coming on,
Thank
Zara.
you so much for having me. I've
Absolute
really
pleasure.
enjoyed it. Thank you.